It's a pedal board nerd out and 3 of the tricks from my bass playing bag. Metal Bass Monday. So I've been watching a couple other channels and just kind of picking up ideas and things and watching how things are done. And apparently just asking you to click isn't good enough anymore. Apparently I'm supposed to tell you to smash like. So not good enough now? No. Okay, so I need you to drop kick like it. Okay, I want you to arm bar like while holding its head in the toilet water, repeatedly flushing the water. Like. I want you to cover like in chicken grease and force it into a grizzly bear infested cave somewhere in the deepest recesses of the Pacific Northwest. Like. Or you can just click it. Okay. So first up on today's show and tell. I got in some awesome cables from Tsunami Cable. I want to thank Keith at Tsunami for making this awesome one for me. I mean, come on, look at that. How great is that? Gorgeous. Really, really excellent cables. And we're going to see that I wired up my whole pedal board with it too, but super high quality stuff and sound fantastic. And I called this one Dark Matter. Aww. And then next up, because I'm getting ready for the whole songwriting, production, and sound series I'm getting ready to do for you guys, I brought in the Slate Raven. Fully multi-touch interface for the DAW, so I'll be able to get some really good screenshots, and you can watch me actually manipulate things and how I'm putting together sounds and everything, so that's going to be very cool and a lot of fun. So, very cool new toy. And last up, before we get into the hardware here is, as I mentioned last episode, Discord server and membership stuff is coming up this week. So I'll be announcing it and have links for everything set up. And there's going to be some very cool content going on with that. And we're going to be able to do some live streams. If you haven't already, check out the Facebook group, link down below. If you can't join us on live streams starting up here soon, that's still a great way to be in touch. And I love the stuff that the community's going over there. I try and moderate with a very light hand, and it seems like everybody's been really cool and sharing great ideas. So I love it. Thank you guys for participating. It's a lot of fun. So let's nerd out on some pedals. It's a number of people have been asking and wanting to see kind of how I configure things. This is my board. So my signal flow coming through here is obviously I start off with my wireless, and that goes directly into my Providence tuner. There's a review for that one. I'll info card that. But the cool thing about it is it's not just a hyper accurate tuner. It's one of the few that actually can handle doing really low and drop tunings and does it quickly and accurately and even has a strobe function. But what I do is I have everything on the board in a loop based off of this. And so when I click this to go into tune, everything gets shut off. Or I can just use it as a giant mute button. It sounds great, and it's got a buffer in it that makes up for the whole signal routing and chain and kind of re-spices the sound up and gets it back to where it would be if you weren't looped through all those devices. So, important part of my chain. I really dig that. Now, the first thing that goes from there out is into my booster and distortion pedals. The first one in the chain is the DSM Noisemaker Subatomic. Absolutely love this pedal. It's utterly unique, and it's just got this surprisingly warm for a MOSFET kind of drive. And it's so small, but you have so many shaping options in it. I've come up with really interesting distortions that I wouldn't normally get from a standard pedal. If you haven't checked it out, I definitely recommend it. Again, another one I did a demo for, put a couple sounds together. I'll card that one too. Behind that, I have the Ashdown Hyperdrive. This one isn't as common, and I haven't done a demo for this one, but I keep meaning to get around to it. It's a great solid drive. It was the signature drive for the bassist James Lomenzo. I'm sure you're probably familiar with him. He's played with basically everybody. But the cool feature about this one is that you can zero in on a specific frequency and distort just that, or add gain to it and focus where you want your drive to sit. So you want something warmer and thicker, you can set it at about 500 hertz and widen the Q out. Or you could get something like I usually use it for, up around 2K, really narrow, sharp hit, and get a really metallic, gnarly grind coming out of it, but focused only in that area. I kind of use it for some solo things or to just add a little bit of edge going into my other units. Now from there, into the main effects that I use, which are my chorus and phaser. Just like with my tuner, they're both from Providence. I really love the Providence gear. They're very cool, and these are some of the richest sounds that I've ever heard come out. Providence just seems to have kind of a really good lock on that older school, kind of warm, rich, but spread out in a more modern way, almost 3D sounding type of thing. When I go for effects or modulation stuff, I tend to like really rich things that open up the bass and make it sound symphonic in a way. So the chorus and the phaser, my two favorite effects on bass after, distortion and things. So I have those both available. Those go out, and the next in the chain is the Steve Harris. It's such a great one. Again, I've done a demo. You can check out all these. It's a good straight ahead bass tone that you can add a little bit of gain to, a little bit of drive, a fundamental bass tone for all seasons type of thing. Really great unit. And then that one feeds directly into the Doug unit. I use this one for my primary sound. Most of this is based on it, and sometimes I'll obviously use the boosters going into it, or I even sometimes use the Harris going into it because it has a certain low mid grunt that I really like, and I add that into going into the Doug, or I just use it as an initial booster stage. Last up is the AMT Pangea Virgin Cab. Now this is an IR loader. If you're not familiar, got another demo, check it out. This takes impulse responses, which are basically analyzed curves of speaker cabinets. And I have it with a replication of my 412 Mesa cabinet. So when I go out of here, I send a line out to the front of house. It sounds exactly how I want my cab to sound, mic'd with exactly the microphones I want it to sound like. So it is my perfectly optimized tone going out to the board, and it sounds just like what I hear behind me on stage with my 412 cab. So I know what they're getting out front is exactly the way I want to hear my cabinet. Absolutely priceless. It's tiny, there's a ton of options, and inside of it, if I decide I want to mess with it even more, it's got a preamp simulator, it's got a compressor, it's got a noise gate, you could almost do a gig with this thing alone. It's insane. And it takes a balanced out as well. So fantastic unit. Really, really enjoy this one. And then that goes out. And then we have this empty space here. This would usually have the YYZ pedal on it from Tech.21. Again, demoed it. But I'm really looking forward to the new one that's coming out. Tech.21's putting out, I believe it's called the DI2112, but it's kind of a half desktop, half pedal board kind of thing. And it's got a more extensive control set than the Getty. So I'm going to keep the Getty as my home rehearsal thing, and the 2112 is going to be sitting right here. So can't wait to get that one in here. I've already cleared a space for her. And that would go in the chain. It would go directly into the Getty and go into the Steve and go into them, so I can combine them as I want or switch which preamp emulation I want. So that's pretty much my board. And I've been asked if I do a travel version of it, and I do. If I'm going to travel or if I need to really cut it down to the bare essentials, usually what's going to happen is my wireless and my tuner, the Doug, and the AMT are what's going to go. So I'm going to have these 4 pedals on a shorter board about like this, and that's compact enough that I can have everything I possibly need, and I'm good to go with it, and I can still be wireless. So that's the pedal nerd out. So what do I mean by the bag of tricks? Well, I find that there are certain things that come about as a part of your style, certain things that become touchstones, or with any player, things that they tend to like that they go back to kind of pull ideas from on a regular basis. And some of mine are going to be ones that I'll show here. And I've shown this to a couple of students, so some of it may be a little familiar to you, but it's just ideas that I kind of wanted to put out and show, here's some things that I've discovered and kind of where they came from, and things that, you know, through exploration I've just found work with me and my style and I enjoy them, and kind of encourage you to find those ones of your own and really develop those ideas, because once you refine it over and over and you've used it in a number of situations, those are the pieces that become your signatures. I know, you know, a few of these are things that I've been asked about a number of times, or had people ask what I did or how I did it. And so I know it's becoming a signature because it stands out. So let's take a look, and we're going to start with. Now, the reason I feel like this one's kind of a unique idea is whenever I say I like to work in 5, people assume one of two things. That either I'm working an odd meter, which I'm not, or that I'm using polyrhythms, which I'm not. A polyrhythm would be something like where the rhythm, say, is still based around the standard 4 count, and you're playing 5 and making it fit into that 4 count. That's not at all what I'm talking about. When I use 5, what I'm actually doing is playing the same counts, like 1, 2, 3, 4. But when people are usually playing over that, they play in even numbers. So you'll make, say, a musical statement that's going to be based around something that finishes inside those 4 beats. So inside of every 4 beats, you're going to get the same repetition, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So that's where the idea starts over again. What I do with 5s is I create an idea that stays in that beat feel, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but instead of going and starting over on one of the next, what would usually be the next repetition, I play an idea that goes one more beat, so that the repetition actually starts on the 2 of the next measure. Now, for some people, this may be getting a little odd, but I'm going to show you how it works, and it's pretty simple once you understand it. I'm not playing odd time. I'm playing an idea that takes up 5 beats, but still playing in straight time. So a simple idea about this is something I used in the Voice of Dissent song called Bloodletting. I dressed it up a lot, but you can hear it in different parts. I exaggerated it and added a lot of notes, but it's based around a really simple idea. So let's check it out. What I'm doing is basically just going straight up an E minor scale, which would be, okay? So that's 4 notes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, I'm just going up an E minor scale. Open, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. 4 notes, 4 beats. Now what I do to make it a 5 is after I go up to the 3rd note, I play open again, and then I play the 4th. That sounds like this. See, I have 5 notes. So what that does, and the effect that playing 5, an idea based around an idea of 5 counts over top of 4, is it gives this rolling, disorienting effect because it doesn't feel like it's supposed to land somewhere. It really messes with people a lot of times. They'll start to think that you're actually playing different notes. They can't pick out the underlying repeating pattern because they're so used to hearing it land on 4. So it's really cool, and every 2, because 2 5s equal a 10, it lands on a downbeat again. So it becomes a really kind of ear-twisting kind of thing, and it's a lot of fun to play. So let's check it out. I'm going to play it over a beat, and you'll understand how this works. So it has this kind of, you can hear that it's the same notes, and if you're watching me, obviously you can pick it out. But if you're just listening, it has kind of a disorienting effect, and it starts to sound like you're playing things in a reverse order sometimes, or you're actually varying the pattern. It's not until you see it this way that you actually start to realize, especially if it's in a mix with other instruments, that it's just the same thing over and over again. So it's a really cool and useful tool, and you can dress it up and do all kinds of little pieces with it. You know, not use the same notes, but keep playing in 5, doing something like something like that. So it makes it even more disorienting, and it can really kind of make a nice interesting bass line that doesn't have to become really harmonically complex. You can use a small number of notes and create something that rhythmically and sonically is interesting and mysterious sounding, and at the same time doesn't have to overcomplicate the music. So that's a really cool idea, and I picked that up initially by seeing 5s used by guys like Jaco Pastorius. And Marty Friedman, and his soloing especially, is a really big fan of him. And I took the idea after seeing him play some pentatonic lead stuff and using 5s. And I went, can I use this to make a bass line? And I came up with this, and the entire song Bloodletting from my Voice of Dissent project is based around that idea of 5. So try ideas like that. And again, I took this mostly from soloing technique, and I translated it into something to create bass lines with, and I refined it over a number of years, and now it's an automatic feel for me. I can just jump on it and stick it somewhere, and it has an intuitive sense to me, and I get a lot of mileage out of it. So if you hear a really bizarre kind of rolling thing that sounds odd but doesn't seem like it should be complicated, it's probably what I'm doing. So bag of tricks item number 1. Now, number 2 is something that I did a tapping video about. You can check that out here on the channel. I do a full lesson on how to approach it. But it's something I call blurry tapping. And I'll explain why it sounds that way and why I like it so much. A lot of times with people's tapping, especially what's really in right now, is wide interval tapping. Meaning that they'll especially take advantage of like open strings, and they'll have one hand high up on the neck, one hand about middle, and then off of an open string, so you're getting like a very wide set of intervals, and you can pick out and clearly tell what the notes are, and you have this kind of wide ringing sound to them. I use something a lot more often that is a lot of close intervals together that creates this kind of buzzing, rolling effect that is interesting to me because I can move very tight ideas around, and because it's only a couple of notes and you're ripping around in a short area, it has, again, like this buzzing type of sound or a blurrier sound because the notes are all very close and clustered, and I use it in a lot of minor things. And the basic maneuver being where I would tap onto one note, pull off, and then hammer onto it as well. So I get kind of a kind of sound. Then what I'll do is start alternating and popping out of it to hit the note above it. So that type of thing. So it has this kind of just circular sense to it, and it's very tight and closed. And because it's not really what's in vogue, and I don't hear a lot of players doing that type of thing, I get a lot of mileage out of it, and it gives an interesting flavor to things. Instead of trying to be this bigger kind of piano-like orchestrated sense of tapping, I can do something that's a bit more tighter and scale-oriented, and then even move it around the neck kind of thing. Again, it's almost like the 5 thing. It has this very swirling effect to it. I go to that one a lot. If I'm going to do tapping, I almost have to kind of consciously not use or overuse that one as much. But because it's not common, and because a lot of the people that I learned from early on as far as tapping, being like Paul Gilbert or Billy Sheehan or stuff like that, they would tend to use the same things. Even Vi used it early on. That's where I initially picked it up. And it's proven to be really useful because it's an interesting flavor, and it also means that, just like with the 5 thing, I'm not stretching out and covering a ton of intervals. I'm doing something that's in a tight and closed area with minimal harmonic content, and then I can choose to spread it out or move it around if I want. But this one stays pretty tight and closed, so again, I'm creating an interesting sound without spreading out so much that I may start to interfere harmonic-wise with the other instruments that I'm playing with. So that's a cool one, and if you like it, just check out on the channel here. I've got a tapping lesson on it, and it's 2 full runs, and it's good stuff. If you happen to do that lesson, put yourself down below. Let me see you playing it, and I'll try and stick you in a video or something. It'd be very cool to see if somebody takes advantage of it, and I hope you do. So, on to number 3. Here's something I try and live by, which is, if you have to play something fast, try and make it as uncomplicated as possible, but ironically at the same time, try and make it more interesting sounding than what a lot of people might usually do with it. Take a simple principle, but then expand it to something that you can practice, get up to speed and do, that's going to be new and maybe a little spicy sounding, but try not to create too much random stuff into it. Make it interesting, but at the same time, try and keep it into a simple principle. So what we're going to do here is do what I call octave splitting. I can't claim a lot of credit for this one. I initially picked this up from a bassist I've referenced before named Steve Bailey. This guy is the master at doing this type of stuff. He plays a 6-string fretless bass and shreds this type of stuff. So I definitely grabbed it from him when I was studying with him at Musicians Institute, and it's paid off. So let's take a look at it. So let's take a really simple idea, like 6 notes from a scale. So we're going to do something like, so I'm just going 12, 11, 9 on both strings. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take it and go, okay, I'm going to take the first 3 notes, and instead of going to this second set, how most people would run a scale quickly, something like that. So what I'm going to do is actually just take this first set, and I'm going to split it over an octave, meaning if I go, then I'm going to go. So I have to jump a string and move down a whole step. So now I've got something a little more interesting. Instead of just going straight down a scale, I'm going. So now what I'm going to do is jump back up a string and do an octave down of that. So I get something that goes like this. Octave. Go back up. Octave. So you get. Simple idea. I'm just doing the same pattern over and over again. You do a run like that, and you do it at full speed, and especially, this is a great one for following a drum fill or something. You get this really kind of, again, just like the other ideas, this rolling, weird, swirling type of feel. And it's a fun idea, but I'm doing one fingering repeatedly because I have to play it fast. So because I need to simplify it, what I do is create a complex way of playing something very simple. Again. I'm just doing this shape over and over again. But doing it in the middle of a song somewhere, it can really have a very cool and disorienting effect doing something like that. If you play a 6-string, you got another octave you can jump down, so you can just floor it all the way to the bottom. But it's a fun thing to do, and it just has this kind of rapping, rolling feeling to it. Simple idea. But not a lot of bass players seem to jump strings in their riffs. And especially don't just keep stacking octaves on the way down. So, because I tried to come up with ideas as well that weren't going to take up so much sonic space, that I'm not going to interfere with what's going on with the guitars. Most bass players let that limit them. I went, how much space can I take up by using the octaves over and over again? I'm playing the same couple notes. I'm just displacing them over and over. So, little fun shred thing, and maybe like I picked up in the other idea, a lead or a shred idea and turned it into a bass thing. Maybe you'll take this and turn it into a cool bass line idea instead of more of a solo or shred thing. Challenge. You must meet it. Let me know if you figure out something like that. I'd love to see it. So that's going to do it for this Metal Bass Monday. Hope you picked up something out of it. And let me know, do you have a bag of tricks and stuff that maybe I can steal from you? Pop it in the comments down below. Let me know what's going on. And let me know if any of this stuff becomes useful to you. And what's your pedal board look like? Let everybody know. And stop in on the Facebook forum and talk some more about it. So, utterly destroy the like button, the subscribe, the share, and make sure you turn on the alerts so you get the upcoming episodes because YouTube's making it rough. In any case, be well. I'll see you next week.